The genocide in eastern Ukraine and its, quote, shameful cover-up in this program.
Bombing the wheat fields to make sure there's famine. Kiev's leaders repeat Hitler's genocidal oath. And Ukraine's kids taught to occupy Western Europe.
Some million people were slaughtered in Rwanda's ethnic genocide in just 100 days. The man who assassinated the country's president to spark that frenzy was trained by the US. Ministers confirmed the missile that blew up the president's plane came from US stockpiles. Once the, quote, massive bloodbath predicted by the White House began, memos show the US did everything possible to keep the murder going, vetoing any intervention to stop the violence, and even instructed US government officials and mainstream media not to call the genocide a genocide, to avoid public pressure to, quote, actually do something.
Be careful. Genocide finding could commit the US government to actually do something.
The genocide spread to resource-rich Congo and was a huge success for Washington, bringing US puppets to power. When the scale of the atrocity came out, Bill Clinton was forced to make perhaps the most honest statement by a US president in 30 years, admitting US claimed concern for, quote, human rights and democracy around the world are just crocodile tears. Even when there's genocide, the White House only ever does anything, he said, when it's in American multinationals', quote, interests.
Whether we get involved in any of the world's ethnic conflicts, in the end must depend on the cumulative weight of the American interests at stake.
Investigative journalist William Engdahl joins us. Great to talk to you. So genocide is just another foreign policy tool for the US?
Well, Susan Rice is a prime example. When she was Assistant Secretary of State for Africa Policy under Clinton, she and her advocacy enabled the death of 5 million Africans through the Congo crisis. We have people in the Washington administration who are unfit to stand trial for war crimes. Their record has such blood on it. And the Libya responsibility to protect, which is responsibility to commit genocide in Libya, in reality. And I think the same cast are trying to orchestrate a genocide in eastern Ukraine.
Body parts lying on the ground, another villager's organs hanging on the outside. Only a torso left. The latest victims of Kiev's mass daily bombings of unarmed civilians. Reportedly, Kiev has again used banned cluster bombs in this attack, designed to kill indiscriminately. The bombs splinter, maiming or killing everyone in the surrounding area. Vanya celebrated his 5th birthday the day before the bombing. The next day, the junta's cluster bomb blew his leg off. He died almost immediately in front of Vanya's mother's eyes. How would US-backed President Poroshenko feel, she says, if that was his children? Kiev, notes historian Eric Zuis, is the most far right-wing government on the face of the earth. It's on a one-way killing spree. He points out the self-defense forces are not bombing or massacring anyone. Residents of eastern Ukraine told Op-Ed News they used to think pilots were just flying blind and missing their targets. Then they found they were actually highly accurate, always hitting civilians who had no other crime than their ethnicity. In the pretty countryside of East Ukraine, a tiny village called Saurovka, the openly Nazi mercenaries who make up Kiev's new army despise the place because it has a memorial commemorating World War II victory over their fascist heroes. The memorial is shelled by Kiev's army almost every day. One day, its mercenaries attacked the village itself. Locals claim this is what happened next.
Kiev's army, being a direct successor to Hitler's Wehrmacht, terribly hates the Saurovka Memorial. All the time, their artillery and mortars lob shells directly at the memorial. One day, the Right Sector, National Guard, Azov and Dnepr Battalion mercenaries came to Saurovka village and they instilled European values. They took the men alive and cut off the limbs. First the arms, then legs, then the heads. They did not cut the women. They raped them.
Village after village, town after town in eastern Ukraine, eyewitnesses report unarmed civilians being systematically massacred, all under complete mainstream media silence. Independent journalists who might reveal what Kiev's doing are prized targets. It's already murdered and tortured numerous war correspondents, such as Channel 1 cameraman Anatolij Klian, the correspondent and sound engineer for Russia TV, and Italian photographer Andrea Rochelli. The UN admits refugees are in the hundreds of thousands, the biggest humanitarian crisis in Europe since World War II. Real numbers are likely to be much higher. But the State Department officially laughs at them, claiming they're just tourists visiting their grandmother.
That number of people had crossed the border at some point. That could be to go visit their grandmother and come back.
Kiev has cut off the remaining humanitarian corridors. The millions in eastern Ukraine are no longer allowed out or food allowed in. Some of the locals survive on berries, famine now as catastrophic as the daily shelling. Once winter comes, they say, it will be another Leningrad siege. The city of Leningrad was besieged by the Nazis in World War II for years, leading to an estimated 1 million deaths. American George Eliasson lives with his Ukrainian family near Lugansk. He's being bombed daily by Kiev mercenaries. He's surrounded by Kiev's snipers and tanks. Killers from the Nazi Right Sector Party now control the streets of his village. We will not reveal his exact location. A bounty has been put on the head of anyone who speaks out against Kiev. Mr. Eliasson, thank you very much for talking with us. First of all, can you tell us the situation there?
Hospitals, orphanages, the city marked 5, 6, 7, 8 times. It's not a mistake anymore. I mean, it's just horrific. The body count right now is of just people. There were no soldiers there. There was no military equipment there. They just dropped the bombs using phosphorus back in wartime, you know, against the foreign invader. Never mind the people that didn't attack anybody. So the level in terms of genocide, doing something that's beyond humanity. Walking up to somebody and disembowel them, a child. That's an act of heroism for Bandera.
Yeah, is Kiev deliberately trying to create a humanitarian catastrophe in the region?
100%. What's going on right now, they're even burning the wheat fields so the crop doesn't come in, just to make sure it happens. They're bombing, you know, fields that need to be harvested. Heard about one of my neighbors. He went out to harvest his wheat. They shot up his tractor, you know, sniper fire, just to get him off the field so the grain goes by, it doesn't get harvested. We're looking at the possibility of a few 100,000 people starving to death. That they were shooting up all medical transports. So right now it's becoming critical. And it's very, very difficult to find any type of medication. It's almost as though the more horrific a thing they do, the easier it is for them to get away with it.
Rwanda's genocide took off when ethnic minorities were publicly dehumanized as, quote, cockroaches and vermin. In a report named What's Orange and Black and Bugging Ukraine, US-funded Radio Free Europe in Kiev brands pro-Russian Eastern Ukrainians Colorado beetles, a bug that eats plants. Many Eastern Ukrainians wear orange and black ribbons, originally known as the Order of St. George, which commemorate the 30 million who died defeating fascism in World War II. Washington's Radio Free Europe links to this ad by Kiev President Poroshenko's Channel 5, which pledges to, quote, kill Colorado beetles on the spot. Poroshenko officially calls Eastern Ukrainians, quote, parasites. Washington's blog notes Hitler gave the same reason for ethnically cleansing his country. US-appointed Premier Yatsenuk, in his official statement, calls Eastern Ukrainians subhumans for extermination. Ukraine's embassy in Washington has now changed his transcript to inhumans, which, as commentators point out, isn't even a noun. But buoyed by the silence in the West, Poroshenko just said it again in his official address, branding almost half his entire country subhuman. Live Leak notes subhumans, Untermensch in German, is precisely how Hitler described Slavs in World War II. After Hitler's invasion, survivors were put in so-called filtration camps, and their living space, in German Lebensraum, awarded to invading soldiers. Kiev's defense ministry says it is putting surviving eastern Ukrainians in filtration camps and will give Lebensraum, eastern Ukrainians' land, to Kiev soldiers after they've, quote, cleansed the current inhabitants. Last week, Kiev's Defense Council bragged that it's already cleansed the first 3 villages. Let's speak to US Navy vet and former senior lecturer in international relations, Mark Sloboda. Thank you very much for coming on. How are these orders being carried out?
These mass artillery attacks, the use of weapons such as grads, multiple launch rocket systems, Uragens, the Smerch city flatteners, are extremely ineffective in targeting small self-defense forces, the military forces of Novorossiya that are resisting them. They are specifically a weapon of ethnic cleansing. They are specifically targeting cities, towns. They have wiped out water supplies, very specifically multiple times, with very precision targeting.
Top war crimes prosecutor Professor Francis Boyle secured genocide, cease and desist orders for Bosnia in the World Court and was the first to bring an Israeli general to trial for atrocities against Palestinians. Professor Boyle joins us. It's really great to speak to you. Is Kiev committing genocide?
Yes, I'm afraid what we're seeing is a degeneration into genocide at this point. The United States here under Obama is guilty as sin in aiding and abetting what Poroshenko and his neo-fascists are doing now. Indeed, yesterday and the day before, the Obama administration and their spokespeople supported Poroshenko in acts of genocide against the Russian speakers.
Extremist ultranationalist views have been encouraged among Ukraine's children for a number of years already. They are taught Nazi slogans and Hitler salutes at summer camps. Large groups chant, "Hang Russian speakers from trees." It is not rhetoric. Right sector youths are now literally hanging Russian speakers with a sign round their neck that says, "Hang Russian speakers from trees." Gangster President Poroshenko presumably approves of this, since to him all Eastern Ukrainians are subhuman parasites. This boy has been taught that Ukraine historically has occupied Poland, Romania, Germany, and other parts of Western Europe. All of Western Europe was occupied by these people's heroes not too long ago. Millions were, quote, cleansed in the filtration camps that Kiev is again setting up today. Western leaders nurturing and financing today's openly genocidal fascists is a slap in the face to every victim who died fighting the Nazis and seems a perverse effort to want to go through it all again. Seek truth from facts. This is The Truth Seeker.